Hello everyone. So I'm sure you'll have seen we just got the massive patch notes before the new season starts, and I don't want to talk too much about it before I get into like the decks. But my general views are that they've been a bit light on a few cards. I think this is more a fear of killing archetypes outright rather than just tweaking it. They just kind of don't want to go in too heavy-handed, which is fair enough. I think the only big change where I was like really impressed was Novigradian Justice. That was a really good change. I think it was quite needed, to be honest. So I'm really glad to see that. Um, Now, in terms of this video, I'm sure if you've seen it before, you know the general gist. If you've not seen any of my Six Factions, Six Decks videos or this first one of my videos, firstly, thank you for watching. And general concept is I'm going to be going over the six sort of main decks I'm going to be playing next season. This isn't like a meta snapshot, like these are the best decks around or anything. There is what I'm personally going to be playing. So obviously take it with a pinch of salt, and it's more guidelines for you to get some ideas rather than saying, you're going to get insane win rates. So don't hold me accountable, basically. So I don't think there's too much to say beyond if you do want to see more of my content, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. It would really help me out. And yeah, we'll just go straight into the first list. So the first list I'm going to be using, I don't think is going to be too much surprise if you've been watching any of my videos or watching my stream. It's going to be vampires. So I've done a couple of videos with this now, and I really, really enjoy using this list. It inevitably will always lose if you run into Erden, but that's just kind of something you have to accept. You just have to accept going into the games. Um, Now this is like very meta dependent because obviously the less Erden's being played, the better this deck's going to become. And I think if what I expect will happen and there's less Vi on the ladder, you're definitely going to see less Erdens, and therefore this list's going to do a lot better. So yeah, you'll definitely be frustrated if you run into Erden, but beyond that, it feels like a really nice, like well-rounded list. So your bronzes are reasonably strong. You've got plenty of sort of mid-rangey, low-cost golds that feel really, really good in the list. So things like the Beast, for example, and obviously you have Egan and Osrol for like huge point slam. You've got Goliath as well, and then you can use your Caranthea to get two Orianas down, get a little bleeding down, and you're sorted from that point on. Um, I've even found in the lockdown matchup you actually don't do too bad. Obviously, Oriana isn't going to climb too high because you're missing out on basically 9 points of bleeding from your leader, and from two Orianas, that's potentially 18 points. So you're missing quite a bit there, but you still do pretty nice in the matchup. Seem to have a pretty good time. So if the sort of Colgrim, Sirinova kind of cloggers list is still roaming about, you've got a pretty favourable matchup there. You shouldn't be too bad, especially because of uh, Queen of the Night being able to purify Defender, use your Karathi to deal with Colgrim, and most of the time you can just outpoint and past that point. They can't really touch your Ariana because of Cave Troll, and you're pretty much good to go. So yeah, I'm gonna be playing quite a bit of this list to be honest, on ladder next season. Okay, so for Nilfgaard, please hear me out. Gonna be running lockdown, but it's not the sort of lockdown you'll be seeing commonly, like the ball and or Colgrim Nova. So the list I will be using is one I showed quite a while ago. I played a few games with it, but I don't really play a ton of Nilfgaard, and it's one I kind of want to go back to. And it's like a spy archetype. Um, I really sort of built this when there was the changes to Milton and Palmerin, and I kind of wanted to try them out, and I found that they did reasonably well. Mainly, mainly because nobody expects them. Nobody thinks you're going to be playing them, and you seem to get reasonable value, especially on Milton. I seem to be able to, quite consistently get 10 points of value from Milton. And because the seven provision cards, it's not too big of an investment. So if you don't know, which I won't be surprised because you won't really see these cards all that often, Milton damages a unit by 1, Deathblow damage adjacent units by 2, and Palmerin is damage a unit by 2 and gives spying to adjacent units. And if the either one is in hand, the Deathblow triggers regardless of if you kill a unit. So it's similar to how like Serra and Oracles and Letho work, having the other card in hand. And typically, what I was doing was using Milton with Palmerin in hand because getting a 1 point death blow is a lot harder than getting a 2 point death blow, if that makes sense. There's not many units that you're going to be able to get down to 1, unless you have plenty of enforcers down and things like that. And yeah, the general concept is really trying to benefit from having all your spies on the board and giving things spying, benefiting from that, and kind of rolling from there. So we're sort of using Ramon to get multiple Imperial Enforcers, using Fergus to give things spying, Coup de Grace to benefit from units being spying. Because Fergus can give spying to something, you can then Coup de Grace quite a big unit. So say your opponent plays, I don't know, they play something like a Gezrus, for example, give that spying, you can Coup de Grace, get your own Gezrus, don't have to rely on the death rattle. And the games that I played at the time, the meta's changed quite a bit, but it did okay. Not incredible, and I've kind of updated it for the new season because there's been a few changes since I've run it. And I'm kind of excited to try this out. I think it will do reasonably well. So, yeah, if you're bored of the typical Nilfgaard stuff at the moment, definitely give that a try. So, for Northern Realms, I'm going to be running a bit of Siege with Mobilization and Idoran. So, again, another list I've been using quite a bit is Redea Siege, and it seems to do pretty well. But I've not really explored the like Idoran Siege kind of side. I've used Redea Siege quite a bit, but I wanted to try out Idoran a little bit more and maybe lean a bit further into that. Obviously, if you remove the singleton kind of stuff, you can lean a lot harder into other stuff. So the general idea is we're looking to benefit from the spawn mechanic, from mobilization, from siege spawning units, from Queen Adalia spawning copies of your bronzes so you can keep churning out units. Obviously, this is quite high rolly because without Idoran, you're losing a huge amount of power, but you can still kind of get the job done. And also, there's been a few little tweaks to cards, so it shouldn't be. I don't think it's going to be too impactful, but like Trebuchet got a very, very minor buff, so we'll see if that does anything. I don't expect that it will be too impactful, but it's always nice to have in your back pocket if you need to benefit from that extra damage. Some of the downsides are going to be NR's inevitable issues with consistency. I have tried to use this with an era, and it was a really hard cut to make, but I have put an era just because I would rather use those provisions elsewhere, because when you're already running Amphibious Assault and Siege and Adalia and all the other stuff you want to get going, it can get really, really bloated, and an era just felt a little bit too much. And AA is kind of giving us consistency, so yeah, it seems like a pretty strong list to use. How it'll do in different matchups, I think Lockdown it'll be quite good. I think you have enough tools to deal with scoia'tael movement, especially with them being incentivized to stack the range row with things like sentries and Dryad Matrons, for example. Having the trebuchets just pinging away every turn is really nullifying all of the value that their sentry is going to be given. So I think it's a reasonable deck to run. I think if you want in the strongest list for NR, you're probably still best going with Witches. But if you're looking for an alternative, this list will definitely do well for you. For scoia'tael this season, I'm going to be using a list that you've probably seen if you watch the stream. It's my hand buff, a glaze degenerate list. It's not good for laddering. Like, I want to make that crystal clear. There is next to no consistency with this, but it's my like go-to kind of fun deck. The general concept is using either getting like Skags or well, you basically want a glace in hands, but Skags is like a runners up prize, a consolation prize if you miss the glace, and trying to make the most out of hand buff to really capitalise on a massive glace. Typically, you're wanting to win round one so you can have that guaranteed last save so your opponent can't do anything to your glace. And then in round three, you can go like borderline unitless because you're playing, your Thunderbolts, and you can use like things like Circle to maybe buff the glace in hand, and sort of all those sort of things really limit how many units you play, so there's not too much interaction that can be done in round three. And you then use your tempering to buff up a glaze, and you're perfectly happy. And the good thing with this list as well is we are running Novigradian Justice, but the change to Novigradian Justice doesn't really matter because it's not being used how Novigradian Justice has been used, in the way of just slamming down 13 points. It's being used alongside dwarf cards that you're just naturally running, so you don't really have the problem that other scoia'tael decks will have with needing dwarves on the board to actually play Novigradian Justice. So it's a nice thing not to worry about. And yeah, I'd definitely give this list a try. I was playing this on stream, and we were sort of hitting like 60, getting up towards 70 pointer glaces, and this is without Sienna. We don't need the setup for Sienna. It's just a glace from hand coming out absolutely huge, and it's really really fun to play. And it's a homebrew as well. It's not one I pulled from elsewhere. This is a complete mess that's come out of my own mind. So yeah, this is my gift to you all. So I hope you enjoy it. For Skellige, I'm going to be trying out a Witcher kind of build. So the sort of close runner-up that I'm probably also going to be running is, it's been like kind of dubbed the ethical Ursan ritual. It's basically SK Warriors but using Ursan ritual and Ceres. But it looks pretty fun. I'll probably be running that a bit, but I also kind of want to try out this Witcher approach, benefiting from the damaged units and really leaning into what Skellige is supposed to be, getting red health units on both your opponent's side and your side, and really capitalizing on that. So you can get the Witcher mentals that are absolutely huge, and it looks pretty fun. Mainly because if you look at kind of what's on the ladder at the moment, there's a lot of sort of small damage pings going about. With like Madoc decks, for example, a lot of things sort of chipping away damage, not necessarily killing units, and that just plays right into your hands. So I'll be really interested to see how this goes. I don't think it's going to be incredible, but I think it'll be quite surprising. I think it'll do reasonably well, and I really want to try out. I mean, this is something I wanted to try for a while. Is the whole Geralt Gwen into Arnagard, getting the shield on him, cancel out the last few things your opponent wants to do, basically. That seems like a really nice combo to have to kind of finish off the game, really close out, especially when you think about the cards that people are playing at the end. And also a little thing to keep in mind with this list is I am running Anchorite Longships, and one of the big benefits of these is if you can play these in the Nova Clog matchup, like quite late on, it basically means they can't play a Colgrim if they can't remove it, because Colgrim comes down as 1 point, and an Anchorite Longship will just snipe that away. So if they can't remove it, they just can't play Colgrim. So you can play this when they have 3 cards in hand. They're probably going to play Colgrim next. You play an Anchorite Longship. They either have to have a coated weapons left in hand, which most of the time when they're down to the last 3 cards they weren't, or their Colgrim just isn't going to get played. So it feels like a nice little counter to what's going around on the ladder at the moment. So if that particular matchup happens, you're playing this list, just think back to this moment. Remember to keep that Anchorite Longship ready when they're going down to having 3 cards in hand, because Colgrim's coming and you'll thank me then. And to round it off, we have the faction that everyone's forgotten existed, which is Syndicate. Syndicate's kind of dropped off the radar a little bit, and this really hasn't been a case of big nerfs. Apart from the sort of nerf to Passiflora, which hit them reasonably hard because although you're not really losing any value on what you're getting, the ordering is actually quite significant and you lose quite a bit of value from it. But I still think, in terms of like power level, the decks haven't really dropped. It's more with the new expansion. They didn't get any like new tools that really complemented the old like established decks, whereas other decks basically got stuff that you could just slot straight in and it improved them. So if you think about SK Warriors, for example, they got like Bear Witches, which just slot right in, and Syndicate never really got anything like that. So it was in effect pre-expansion state, post-expansion when all this power creeps happened. Um, and obviously we've had swarm lists, but hidden cache is the kind of thing I wanted to go back to, especially this Nerva kind of setup. And the reason why, after I saw like the patch notes and everything, the reason why I wanted to try this out was I saw the change to Louisa. So if you cast your mind back to when Hidden Cache was like super dominant and the strongest deck on the ladder and everybody hated it, a big issue was Louisa Savola being able to play it and your next tribute being free. So that meant that Savola basically came down as 18 points with 2 points of profit, and you'd have to tribute single coin. And what they've done with the patch notes when they've changed it for this new season is they've given Louisa, you can pay a tribute of 3 and you get Zeal, which basically means you pay 3 coins, you get pre-nerf Louisa, which is a pretty fair trade-off. In some matchups you can be like super greedy, so if you're playing against NR Witches, for example, and you can be very confident they don't have a boiling oil, then you can probably greed out those 3 coins, but in a lot of matchups you don't have that time to sort of leave a relatively vulnerable unit up and wait that turn. So being able to consistently have access to that combo is really, really nice. And Nova kind of fits Hidden Cache very naturally. Obviously, you are going to miss out on Passive Flora, which is quite big, but a lot of the sort of engines that you're trying to play are below 9 provisions. A lot of the cards you would normally run in Hidden Cache are below. So things like, your Soul, your Flying Redanian, all of your sort of bronze engines, all of those will fit in with the added bonus of because you're playing 9 provisions or lower, you also have these extra provisions to put in some of the more expensive stuff. So, your Dimutated Hound, for example, and really beef out those cheaper cards, and obviously put Louisa Savola in 2 very, very nice 9 provision units. So I think this list will do pretty well, especially because Vincent isn't really played a whole lot at the moment. Back in the day, Vincent was obviously a huge counter to Savola. You play him, he would come down and could kill the what's it called, the Frightener. I can't even remember what it is that Savola summons. He could kill that straight away and kill an 11-point unit because it had doomed. But now no one's basically playing Vincent, and it's going to be a lot more consistent in terms of your opponent having removal options for it. Only really a Karathi's going to deal with it. And yeah, the list looks pretty fun. It's definitely something I think I'm going to be playing quite a bit, see if Syndicate can be brought back. And I think that will be it. So I hope at least one of these decks has kind of caught your interest. All of the deck lists and everything like that will be in the description, so you can just import them straight in and take them away. Also, if I've either like done a video on any of those decks, that'll be linked, and if I haven't done a video yet, there will probably be one coming. So, for example, the Syndicate deck, I haven't done a video on that, but I would imagine there'll be one this week, and I'll come back if you're watching this, few days, a week later or whatever, I'll make sure that the link's there for you. So that should be it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.